So my name is Jen Watkins. I'm the executive director here at Evergreen. I'm going to hand off introductions to Cameron, and we will just take turns introducing each other. We're introducing ourselves so you can get an idea of who is here on the call with you.
My name's Cameron Brantley. I am the Associate Director for kindergarten through fourth grade. I also serve as the AIG coordinator for the entire school K-8.
Hi, I'm Tim Bushnell, and I'm the Associate Director for grades 5 through 8. I also work with the enrichment team, and I also manage state testing. I'm the testing coordinator and work with beginning teachers.
Kelly, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Kelly Stevenson. I am Student Services and Data Manager, so I manage enrollment and also the lottery. I've been in this position for 4 years, but I was also a parent at Evergreen for 14 years. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce or shoot it over to two of our fabulous student ambassadors who are here on the call today. So Rose, why don't you start, and then we can move on to Gabe.
My name is Rose Dudley, and I've been at Evergreen for 8 years.
And Gabe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gabe Veris, and I'm in 7th grade, and I've been here since 3rd grade.
We would love for you to introduce yourselves by putting your name and the grade level of your student who's looking at Evergreen into the chat so we can get an idea of who's here. And I guess I should be clear, that's for parents who are on the call. If you have a moment, please put your name and your child's name and grade level into the chat so we can see who's here. Hopefully, here we go. Start seeing them coming in. And we're really glad to have you here with us today. Looks like a couple of kindergarten and a first grader, a fifth grader, third grader, seventh grader. That's great. I love seeing a variety of age groups at this session. So as we start every meeting here at Evergreen, we're going to start with our mission statement. And I'm going to put it on the screen and then I will read it out loud. And as I read it or after I finish reading it, I'd love for you to type in the chat a word or a phrase from it that resonates with you as I'm reading it. So Evergreen's mission. Evergreen Community Charter School is a learning community committed to the pursuit of excellence in the holistic education of mind, body, and spirit. We prepare students for successful lifelong learning, social responsibility, environmental stewardship, and service. We value the voice of every member of our community. And part of the reason that we read our mission statement every time that we have a gathering is because it is something that we really live into and is actually kind of an anchor for how we operate at Evergreen. So it's not just a phrase that was written and put up on a wall or put in a paper and then never referred to again, but it really is our kind of cornerstone of how we view education and how we run the school. And I see a couple comments on holistic, lifelong learning, that it's all encompassing. And these are really important points for us too. Lifelong learners, absolutely. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of where we are coming from as Evergreen. And I'm going to talk a little bit about charter schools, and then I'm going to hand it over to Cameron for the next part. But there are a lot of misconceptions about charter schools in North Carolina, and sometimes people from out of state have different ideas of what charter schools are. So I wanted to start with the big picture. In North Carolina, there are public schools and public schools and private schools, and charter schools are considered public schools. So we operate independently from the local school district. So there's Asheville City Schools and Buncombe County Schools in Buncombe County, and then 7 charter schools as well. But we are completely publicly funded. We follow state standards for curriculum. We are required to do all of the state assessments that traditional public schools do. And we are tuition free. I think that's actually something that people have a misconception about pretty often. We follow state policies, we follow federal policies. We receive most of our funding from the state, but some of our funding comes from local sources and from federal sources. And then we also have all kinds of reporting and paperwork that comes from the state that shows that we're doing what we need to be doing every year. Charter schools in North Carolina are open to anyone who lives in the state, actually, and they are tuition free for anyone who lives in the state. So theoretically, you could live in Raleigh and attend Evergreen. Realistically, that's not likely to happen. But that we have most of our families are in Buncombe County. But we have families that come from Haywood County and Henderson County, and maybe that's all. I feel like there's another one, McDowell County, every single day to come to school at Evergreen. And I'm going to hand it over to Cameron to talk about our education framework.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So we at Evergreen use a framework that's based upon the work at EL Education, and it's essentially the instructional model that we follow to deliver the standard course of study, the standards that North Carolina tells us we have to teach as a public school. And that framework can be kind of summarized into active, challenging, meaningful, public, and collaborative. We, as much as possible, have our students doing things rather than just receiving information from the teacher. Our teachers do a lot of initial assessments as well as assessments along the way to find out where the starting point is for each of the kids so that we find that challenge level and we keep them moving forward. It's meaningful. The term that we use often is authentic. We look for connections in the community that are meaningful and authentic to the students so they know the why and they have some investment in what they're learning. The students share what they're learning both with their families but also the wider community. We have several different ways that happens across the year. We have some whole school-wide events where students are sharing their learning, as well as doing student-led conferences where they are sitting down with their families and sharing specifically what their goals are, the work that they're doing to meet those goals, and where they are towards the completion of those goals. And then finally, the collaboration piece is something that we don't hope happens. It's intentional in the work that they're doing in the classroom, that our students are learning how to collaborate to achieve whether it's individual goals or a classroom goal or a group goal. It's an intentional instruction on how to go about doing that. Go to the next slide. So why are we different? A big piece of the EL education model is that it's experiential. So as I said, that the students are getting out in the community, and whether that is their classroom community or the school community or Asheville, itself and are doing things and experiencing the curriculum. We do this through expeditions, which are long-term deep dives into guiding questions, so big questions that get minds going, and through field work. And rather than using the term field trip, we use the term field work because the students are going out to do something. They often go with a particular purpose, a field guide that they have to complete, or interview questions that they have to ask the people that the place that we're visiting. We also have experts come into the classroom, and that is considered field work as well. Part of the EL education framework is that we look at three areas, three dimensions of how kids learn, and it's that academic rigor piece that is mastery of knowledge and skills. It is also character education, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that is given equal weight to the academics. And then finally, we talk to kids about high quality work. We look at ways to develop leadership across the school, but also on an individual level. And that's kind of Rose and Gabe are examples of one opportunity, which is through our student ambassadors. And then a big piece of what we do as a school is that environmental stewardship and service. We try to live the Earth Days every day rather than one day in April, and have kids again being active out in the environment. We're fortunate to have a 10-acre campus that has different areas that can be accessed and used for as a part of the classroom. And then finally, a integral piece or required piece of what we do, because our end of year trips, they are tied into the curriculum. They are happen from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, and build on each other, with kindergarten doing an overnight at the end of the year in their classrooms. They sleep in their classrooms with their teachers, all the way to the end of 8th grade, where they go on a multi-day trip with Outward Bounds. And Rose, I have a question for you. What's been your favorite expedition in your time here at Evergreen, and why was that your favorite?
Personally, my favorite expedition was one that we did in 6th grade. The project was about coffee and learning how it grows and like how it impacts different communities where it's grown. We made posters to like talk about our knowledge for what we had learned. And then we also took a field trip to Dynamite Coffee Roasters, which is a local coffee roasting place. And then we also bagged and sold coffee to raise money for our end of year trip, which was really cool.
Thanks, Rose. And if we go to the next, I think it's the next slide. Yep. So I mentioned before that we've got the mastery of knowledge and skills, high quality work, and then character education, and all of them are given equal weight in the instruction as well as the assessment piece of it. And we do that through the different ways that are listed on this slide there. The habits of scholars, which are the habits, those life skills, those soft skills they're sometimes referred to, that will help them be not only successful with academics, successful with school, but also successful lifelong skills that will be beneficial for them. The discipline model that we use is positive discipline, and it is really focused on problem solving rather than focusing on the you did this and here's the consequence for your action. It is trying to get to the heart of why the situation arose, why voices were raised, or why there was a disagreement about the swings during recess. and then come up with a solution so that that problem doesn't come up again, or if it does, you know, how to solve it in a much more positive way. And all of that is accomplished through class meetings where a class will come together and problem solve together to come up with a solution to something that maybe happening. It's taking too long to line up to get ready for enrichments. What do we do? And then it's monitored and come back and check on it. We also really look at that restorative piece, and having kids look at, all right, you made a mistake and it impacted others. How are you going to go about restoring the community that has been impacted by the choices you've made? And that's done through a lot of talking and a lot of problem solving. And it takes time, but it's worth it. Again, going back to those life skills, these are things that our students are going to need for the rest of their lives. And then the last piece, and not least piece of character education, is a program called Crew that really gets going in second grade. And it is a smaller size group of students that are working with an adults, and that's where they're looking at problem solving, they're looking at team building, they are doing activities that are building their leadership skills. And actually Gabe is going to tell you a little bit more about his experience with Crew.
Yeah, thank you. Brew is like, for me, pretty fun. It's like you like on Mondays normally like split off into like a smaller group and like do more like community building stuff where you can like the teachers are normally like pretty chill and you just like um still learn and you talk more about like community stuff like how like people are different and like you do like other activities other than like math and science and stuff and you kind of just like build better like relationships with like your peers.
All right, thanks, Gabe. Appreciate that. I am gonna turn it over now to Tim.
Hey, thank you, Cameron. So I'm excited to talk to you about our enrichment classes, because we were talking at the very start when Jen was nice enough to read the mission statement, and some parents pointed out the importance of holistic education. And I think that the way that Evergreen manages our enrichment classes really embodies that desire for holistic education and for integration. So Gabe was just talking about Crew, and he was talking about how, and Cameron was talking about Crew. Well, the enrichment teachers, the art teacher, the music teacher, like many of them are involved in Crew and are part of Crew. It's not something that's strictly separate, just as the associate teachers and lead teachers are part of Crew. So Crew is a place where everybody is coming together and children are coming together. And I think that the enrichment classes, as you'll see as we discuss it more, they really do embody that. So the classes that we typically offer, technology, which is a lot of computer work and learning to integrate with computers in lots of different ways, are music classes, and which is a terrific program in terms of instruments, participation, all sorts of ways that kids are involved in the music. Our art classes, which the art is all over our school. And is also put on display multiple times per year and is a huge living part of what makes Evergreen Evergreen, are all these beautiful artifacts that are created by students through that art class and that art studio. Our library, which is not just a library that kids go to, but is a place where a teacher works with them to explore books, explore media, and explore interest in reading. And also have time for kids to be themselves and to get to explore things on their own terms, that sort of holistic or more student-centered part of education. Adventure PE. So it's really an amazing thing to see because it's not just a typical PE class that you would see in a more mainstream public school. You know, it's a place where we really get to be different. Like at the end of Adventure PE, kids are basically doing a smaller version of class meeting or crew where they're kind of pointing out each other's strengths and participation, and sort of taking a bigger view, also related to character education, also related to positive discipline. And then our electives, that's for our grades 6 through 8 only at this time. But with the electives, that's where the different enrichment teachers kind of craft a class of their own that doesn't meet as frequently, but gets to be incredibly specialized to what students would really want to learn about, or have like a maximal interest in learning, or just, you know, want to specialize. So for example, you know, there's a ceramics elective. You know, there are electives where kids get to be more involved in coding. You know, electives where kids might do instrument making and music. You know, so the electives are really amazing, give us a lot more variety, and also provide more of that student choice, and that holistic approach. And then last but not least, we do have environmental education classes in our K through 5. And those classes are very, very hands-on, very experiential, where kids are engaging with materials or setting up experiments, or, you know, it's really cool. It's really a sight to behold. And so the last thing that I wanted to say about enrichments is that these classes don't exist separate from kids' regular core classes. There is a level of communication and collaboration that is involved there. And I want to ask Gabe now to talk about enrichments and specifically how enrichments can integrate with expeditions.
Oh, yeah, you covered a lot of it, but in TED class, a lot of what you learn is cybersecurity and how to stay safe online. Like we just learned about a lot of phishing scams. Like say like you got an email from like someone that's like your credit card number expired, send us like your ID thing. Like how to tell if you're being scammed or not and stay safe online. And a lot of cyberbullying, so like not to get bullied online in games and stuff. Art class, we do a lot of cultural stuff and make a lot of like stuff like with like the time of season. Also, like we'll do like Christmas projects and like clay projects. We have a kiln. Um Electives, you can kind of, like you said, you can kind of sign up for like anything depending on what the teachers do. Like you can have like anything from like drawing in like class to mountain bike riding, depending on like what you sign up for. Um yeah, that's pretty much that's what I can think of with the enrichments.
That's great, Gabe. Thank you. I thought you were going to bring up the Mars project mixed with Minecraft in 6th grade. That's a really cool integration into Expedition. Okay, well, so that is my overview on enrichment classes. Thank you. Who shall I hand it off to next? I'm going to hand it off to Jen.
Thanks. So another way that Evergreen is excellent and different than some schools in the area is that our differentiated services program is very robust. So this is our umbrella that covers exceptional children's program, which is what we call EC, and we call what other states might call special ed, or what you might have grown up knowing as special education. We also have our AIG program, academically and intellectually gifted program, and also our academic support program. These all fall under the differentiated services umbrella. And our goal in this is that when students are enrolled in Evergreen and when they're working in classrooms, we know that every kid's brain is different. Every kid has different needs. Everybody has strengths, and everybody has areas that they're challenged in. So we work in different ways to meet every kid's need, and to meet them where they are, and to help them understand how their brain works, what works well for them, what they need to practice more, what their goals may be, whether it's learning to read at grade level or whether it's reading above grade level and learning to challenge themselves, and to also learn how to be advocates for themselves. So one thing that I love about Evergreen Classrooms is that in a classroom at any given time, there may be 2 or 3 support adults in there, and they may be working with students who are below grade level or students that are above grade level, or students may be getting pulled out into small groups for specialized instruction. And that is totally normal and totally typical. And kids don't really think much about it. It's just they learn that this is how we meet everyone's needs and how we make sure that we're getting that everyone is able to grow and learn as much as possible. And I think a really key part of all of it is making sure that students understand where they are and how they can be learners and how they can grow and advocate for themselves and ask for what they need without it feeling like something that they are worried about. So in our exceptional children's program, we have a continuum of service. So we may have in-class support from a teacher. We may have planning with a lead teacher. We may have a student pulled out or actually even be in a separate setting for most of the day. So we, as a team, figure out what each student needs and try to meet their needs as best we can in whatever settings we need to. We also offer speech language services through contracted professionals, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and counseling services as needed. We contract with outside therapists and outside specialists to help us support students. So the bottom line is whoever your kid is, we are going to look at your kid as an individual and do everything we can to figure out what they need and where they are and meet them where they are to help them grow and make progress. I'm going to hand it back over to Cameron.
Thank you. So while you are scanning the information on this slide, we have about 440 plus or minus students at Evergreen across kindergarten through 8th grade. I want to talk a little bit about our staffing model, which we have lead teachers and associate teachers. And the leads are just like the name says, are leading the classroom. They're responsible for planning. They're ultimately responsible for student progress and reporting. It's kind of where the buck stops in the classroom. And our associate teachers are a really important part of what happens in the classrooms. There's a lead and associate in every classroom, kindergarten through 5th, and then an associate teacher at each grade level, 6th through 8th. And they are doing many different roles. They're doing some of the background. They make copies, they contact parents, get the newsletter together. But they also are a co-teacher in the classroom. We take full advantage of their abilities and their expertise to work with small groups of students so that we're kind of doubling the opportunities for our kids to learn. And then the last piece about our classrooms extend beyond the school building. We just on campus, I mentioned we have 10 acres. We've got forested areas. We've got a couple of different outdoor classroom areas that are utilized as classrooms. Teachers will take students out there to do reading groups or to do a math lesson or to survey the types of trees that are in our forested areas. And then we also, through field work, get our students not just out of the building, but off of campus. And Rose, I'll turn things over to you to talk a little bit more about field work.
Yeah, here at Evergreen, we're always like taking really fun, cool trips that take what we're learning at school and in the classrooms, and they like show us what it might look like in the real world. And like it gives us an opportunity to like see it in person. And for example, in 4th grade, we were studying birds and we took this trip to Big Bald, which is on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee. And we were able to tag birds so that scientists could track them and like interact with like this whole world that we were studying, and it was really cool. So
Thanks, Rose. Yeah, that's a great example of the field work, and there's many more at every grade level, starting in kindergarten all the way up through 8th grade. Jen?
Thanks. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button for a second. So another really key piece of Evergreen and daily life at school is actually you all. So we very firmly believe that you can be our most important partners in education, and you are our most important partners. And we welcome parents into the classrooms and into the school life as much as possible. So we are really striving to build a community. We are really striving to build a space where you feel comfortable coming into classrooms, where you are also valued and welcomed, and we will also put you to work. So keep that in mind. We communicate with you frequently. We have weekly communications that come home from the school and from each classroom. And you will find that our teachers are very available and will make time to meet when needed. And although they don't have phones and can't answer phone calls, they will they're very reachable by email and in the classrooms regularly. So we also have a partnership agreement, and our partnership agreement is basically an agreement that every family signs that discusses how you will support us as a school and how we will support you as a family. And it is very much meant to be a partnership. So we are very much looking for you to do whatever you can to support us and for us to do whatever we can to support you. And when conflicts arise or when there's disagreement in what that should look like, we will sit down together and problem solve and work as a team to figure out how to move forward. So we also have student-led conferences I guess, twice a year. And in younger grades, it's teacher-led the first time. And then in upper grades, it's always student-led. And the idea is that it looks different than parent-teacher conferences, but the idea is that you get to sit down with your student and they can tell you their goals for learning, what their academic and character growth progress is at that time, and where they want to be and where they need to be moving forward. Teachers are also available to have conferences when needed as well, anytime. And then we send home progress reports several times a year that are more formal reports on how your student is doing according to grade level standards and our Habits of Scholars standards. So we like to report to you. We like to communicate with you. We encourage you to do the same for us. We also, like I said, will put you to work. So we have plenty of volunteer opportunities for families. We welcome volunteers in the classrooms doing classroom support and enrichment classes, traveling with younger grades classes to art class, for example, or PE class where they can use some extra hands on deck. We also ask for drivers for fieldwork and chaperones for fieldwork so that we can support the amazing off-campus adventures that students get to take and the work and the service work they do off campus. We even have things like campus cleanups or opportunities to take home classroom sets of rags to wash to be able to return. So there are ways that you can engage and ways that you can participate that don't require being in the classroom if that's something you aren't available to do. We recognize that every family is in a different place and space and that engagement looks different for every family. Some families have 2 working parents and students that go to before and after school and cannot engage in the daily life of school. And there are other ways that we know that you can support. And some families have more availability and can be in classrooms on a daily or weekly basis to support in that way. I think it's just important to name that any type of engagement is encouraged and powerful and welcomed, even if it doesn't look the same as other kids in the class. I will turn it over to Tim to talk a little bit about state testing.
Yeah, everyone's favorite subject. So state testing, just real quick. In my last segment, I got to talk a lot about holistic learning. And I think that the way that Evergreen approaches state testing is a reflection on that emphasis of holistic learning. That state testing is something that we participate in with full participation and commitment, but we also keep very much in mind that that state test scores do not define children and do not define success for children, for teachers, or for our school. That said, We do also participate with seriousness and with a drive to do the very best we can, because we believe that part of students being successful lifelong learners is that they are able to demonstrate their learning. State testing is one way to demonstrate learning. It's not the only way. And that is always an evolving conversation between us and between families and between kids. So without further ado, let's look a little bit at results. So first, just pointing out, and this is public information that can be found in NC State report cards. And what the green column is on your screen, that is the number of that is the percentage of students in the school that are accounted as proficient. And then the orange column is kids that are on track to be career and college ready. Those are the state definitions. You know, they're not necessarily completely accurate, but you still, just jokingly, I'll just say, you know, the higher number is better. So if you see that really our reading results from last year really demonstrate a high level of achievement in reading at Evergreen compared to Buncombe County Schools and the state of North Carolina. I think that reading has been a source of great success at Evergreen for a long time. And I think that that these results kind of speak to the amount of holistic education we do, because kids are kind of reading and writing across disciplines and across domains so often. So that is a big part of that success. If we could go to the next slide, please. Now we're going to look at math. And you can see that that our math, especially in the proficiency category, the green column, is quite a bit ahead. Of course, you know, we are always looking for ways for our students to be able to better represent themselves, but there are aspects of preparing for standardized tests that a lot of other mainstream public schools do that we do not. A lot of mainstream public schools will have kids take very, very long practice tests for weeks leading up to the state tests, and that is not something that is part of our general approach. I mean, there's definitely differences, but from class to class and grade level to grade level, because our teachers are autonomous in terms of how they want to engage their students in learning. But at the same time, I can very safely say that as part of our holistic approach, you know, test prep is definitely low on the priority scale for us. And I think we're proud of that. It doesn't mean we don't want kids to do well. It doesn't mean that we're not going to push to be the very best that we can be and demonstrate successful performance. But philosophically speaking, that is kind of how testing is approached at this school. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit, speaking about things that are not testing. These are opportunities for kids at Evergreen that are outside of class. And this is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot more opportunities than just what's on this slide. But it's still a pretty good list, and it gives you some idea of what we offer. It's also always evolving from year to year. But one thing that's been a mainstay for Evergreen is student ambassadors. And I really love this program here because part of what the student ambassadors do is they really learn how to work as event managers, as hosts, as people who are serving the public. And it's a really great way that kids in our upper grades are able to kind of showcase their maturity, their evolving maturity as young adults. So that's been a tremendously successful program. But then we also have other opportunities that are a little bit more academic based, like Math Counts and Battle of the Books, or Bob, as it is sometimes called. And then there are things that are really have a lot more to do with environmental education, or just, you know, outdoors holistic activities. Ski and Snowboard Club is massively popular and is so much fun for kids. We do have our climbing wall. And kids have opportunities throughout the year to get to practice on the climbing wall. in lots of different ways. So sometimes it's turns by class, and sometimes it's a little bit more club based. Climbing wall, people might not also understand, is also a place where students will sometimes get service opportunities because they come in really just to help and facilitate with younger students that aren't as familiar with the equipment and the procedures, but also just to serve. And similarly, there are ropes courses on campus that are really, really fun and engaging for kids, where they can learn all sorts of character education, physical education, and then mountain biking has been awesome. It's extremely popular. I always have kids ask me if we can have mountain biking happen in the winter, and I have to tell them no. But we try and do mountain biking in the fall and in the spring, and it is very, very fun. And then a little bit more about mentorship. There are different programs in the upper grade levels for kids to work in the lower grade levels. One of the most long running and successful at Evergreen is called Kinder Buddies. And that's where our 6th grade students will go and work with kindergartners. And it's about the most precious thing that you've ever seen, and is a great way that I think that it benefits both groups so much, both the group that's coming and doing the mentorship. When you give, you get. So that is also a really, really powerful program for opportunities outside of class. Next slide, please. All right, a little bit about Ever After. So Ever After is an excellent program that is, part of the Evergreen experience for many families, but it is a fee-based program. So this is a program where kids can stay after school, and they can stay till 6 p.m., which is a little bit later than a lot of programs that you'll see in public schools, and makes a huge difference for some families to make it work in order for their kids to be able to be here. So that's a big part of access to our school is having Ever After there. Kids also engage in clubs and activities involved in Ever After, usually, grouped with children of like ages. And the clubs are really awesome. Sometimes kids don't want to be picked up from Ever After. It is super fun, and they've been doing kindergarten yoga recently, which my daughter has been doing, and it's pretty special. Okay, and then do we have one more slide? Okay, other fee-based services. There is also before school care. So that opens starting at 7:30 in the morning, and that's just providing a structured, safe place for kids who need early drop-off, which for some parents to be able to go to work is massively important. And then it's free for everyone after 7:55 to still come to the gym and be a part of that. And then the summer adventures is basically, your standard summer camp. It's usually about 6 weeks out of the summers when it's offered. It is fee-based. And there are also options with summer adventures in terms of, having extended hours on that as well to help support families in the community in terms of still being able to manage their work life. But that in the summer adventures, they do always include the field trips and the climbing walls and the crafts, which is super duper fun, and kids really enjoy it. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Kelly.
Really quickly, I just want to add in, Tim, that was a great overview. And I also want to add that all of these fee-based services, our goal is also to make them not prohibitive based on financial needs. So we have financial assistance available for families that need it and qualify. So I just wanted to say that really quickly, just in case that wasn't said.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about student nutrition at Evergreen. So we were able to hire a nutritionist back in 2022, and it has been really beneficial for Evergreen and for our families. We are now participating in the National School Lunch Program. That is a federal program that offers reimbursement to the school for free and reduced price breakfasts and lunches. We are the only charter school as of now in Western North Carolina who participates in the National School Lunch Program. And I think there's only about 2 or 3 charter schools in the whole state of North Carolina. So currently for lunches, we do not have a kitchen at Evergreen. So we aren't able right now to cook the lunches on site. So we partner with a program called Each One Teach One through Food, and they provide healthy homemade lunches using locally grown produce, and they come and deliver them to our school each day. We also have, as you can see in the picture, we have this breakfast cart that students, as they come into school in the morning, can pick up their breakfast and take it to class with them. These meals are free of charge to students who qualify as economically disadvantaged. So we don't go by free or reduced, they're just all free. At full price for those families who wouldn't qualify as economically disadvantaged, the snacks are $1.25, breakfast is $2.75, and lunch is $5.75. And then, of course, students can also bring their own lunch or snack from home. And you can move to the next slide, Jen. All right, our school calendar. So at Evergreen, our school year begins in August and runs through June. In addition to winter and spring break, we have an October break and a March break. When we are planning our school calendar, we try to align breaks as much as possible with Asheville City Schools and with Buncombe County Schools. But we do put together our own calendar just for Evergreen. The first day of school for the 25-26 school year is going to be August 18th. That is a half day, and it is a required orientation day for both parents and students. And during that important day, we cover expectations for learning, attendance, and a whole lot more information about our school year. I'm trying to think if there's another slide before. Okay, we'll stay on this slide. For our school day, our classes begin at 8:30. On Mondays, all grades release at 1:35 p.m. So that's something important to note. And then Tuesday through Friday, we have a staggered dismissal. So kindergarten through second grade dismisses at 2:50. Grades 3 through 5 dismiss at 3 o'clock. And grades 6 through 8 dismiss at 3:15. And then again, we have that fee-based before school that begins at 7:30 a.m. And then it's free for before school from 7:55 until 8:10. And then our after school runs until 6 p.m. As far as transportation goes, we currently do not have buses that transport students to and from our school. That said, we strongly encourage families to join carpools, and I keep a pretty extensive list of families who are willing to carpool and what section of town they live in, and I'll connect families that way who are interested in utilizing carpools. All right, you can move on to the next slide. Okay, entering the lottery. So our lottery is currently open for submissions. You can enter the lottery between now and March 31st. There's a link to enter the lottery on our website, evergreenccs.org, on the Prospective Students page. Economically disadvantaged families have priority in our lottery, so that's something important to note. Our preference groups in our lottery are students of full-time staff members, students of siblings who are already enrolled in our school, students of board members, and then students of economically disadvantaged families. We will close our lottery on March 31st, and the lottery will be held on April 8th at 9:00 a.m. That is going to be held via Zoom, and we will put a link to that on our website when we get closer to April 8th. After the lottery is held, your family will either be offered a spot or you will be put onto a waiting list. Families that enter after the lottery is held will be placed at the bottom of that wait list. And then if you're offered a spot in April or May, you will have 7 days to accept or decline that spot. June and July, you will have 3 days, 5 days, and then after school starts, you will have 3 days to accept or decline a spot should you be offered one. And we continue to enroll students up until our winter break. Evergreen does not discriminate based on race, gender, religion, or ethnicity. And we recognize the social and educational value of a diverse leadership, staff, and student community. So we actively seek and encourage board member and employee applications from qualified individuals representing a diverse social, ethnic, and racial groups. All students eligible to attend North Carolina public schools are encouraged to apply in our lottery. And I think now we can open it up to questions and answers. I'll start with some questions that were put into the chat. So someone asked, is it tuition free if you live out of county? Yes, it is tuition free for anyone in the state of North Carolina. Someone asked about staff trainings to support neurodiverse students. Just hit that over to one of our admins to answer that one.
We do have a training coming up in a couple of weeks. So yes. I think it's a really important topic for us. I feel like we're discussing neurodiversity and how to support our neurodiverse students almost every day.
And then we had a question about supporting bilingual learners. Jen or Tim, do y'all want to take that one?
Sure, I can. We do not have a very large population of students that are considered to be multilingual learners or bilingual learners, but we do typically have at least a couple of students who are identified that way. And we, again, going back to that differentiated services piece, we look at where each student is and what they need and meet their needs through extra instruction or tutoring support or in-classroom support, just based on each student's reading level, language level, and what their needs are.
Thanks so much, Jen. I can also unmute myself. I realize it's a little nicer. My follow-up question also is, are aftercare spots guaranteed should you get accepted to Evergreen?
Yes.
Yes, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. All Evergreen students are guaranteed a spot in Ever After. I do want to add that our Ever After program and our summer camp program is open to non-Evergreen students. However, Evergreen students are given priority before, and then as soon as if there's still slots open, then they're offered to other students. And we currently bus students to Ever After from Hall Creek Elementary and from Bell.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Then we had a question probably for Tim with regards to testing. Are students timed? If students have a diagnosed learning disability, does this change how testing is administered?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So regarding classroom assessments, I think that we have, like, classroom tests, we have a lot of latitude in terms of how we want to test students and how students will demonstrate their learning here. We do use standards-based grading here. So the way that works is, it's really not just like whether or not kids can get 90% correct on a quiz. It's much more based on trying to see, what's their aptitude given the state standards. When it comes to our state testing that happens at the end of the year, we do have a very small amount of state testing that's not at the end of the year, but 98% of it is at the end of the year. That is timed according to state law. There are students that have, depending on what they qualify for in terms of carrying different challenges or disabilities, that the timing can be adjusted based on those plans. But those are team decisions that would be a team, in partnership between parents and EC services or differentiated services, teachers and administrators to make the decision for what students need in order to be able to access that state testing. So sorry, that was very wordy, but there's a lot of state law around that. I will say that I've never seen a state test that had no time limit.
I'll add one more piece with our youngest learners, kindergarten through third grade. One of the things that we do as a public school in North Carolina is we do reading assessments with them at the beginning of the year. And it's based on the DIBELS assessments. And those are timed, and it is the exception to holding students to a particular time. And that's just the way that particular test works.
I see the next question is about applications for new board members, and we are currently actually accepting applications right now. The information is on the website, and our board terms are 3 years long and begin July 1st of each year. So if you're interested in being on the board, navigate to our website or contact me and I can get you what you need. But absolutely, we are looking for new board members as we speak.
And I'll just add to that. If in order to qualify for the board member preference group, the board member needs to have served on the board for at least a year. Are there any more questions? Either in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
Can I speak up? I just sent a quick note to Jen, but I'll just ask this publicly and more generally. If you have a child, I just know this from Asheville City Schools, if you have a child who is on Medicaid, that child automatically qualifies for free lunch, I guess breakfast as well, but I know that my child qualified for free lunch. So in the application process, does that child count as like, what would be the right word or right phrase, like eligible for income parameter? I don't actually know the right word, but do you know what I'm getting at?
That's
Like,
okay, yes. The official language in the state documentation is economically disadvantaged, which I don't love, but that's what we use because that's what the state uses. I believe the answer is yes. Kelly can, you can reach out to Kelly and confirm a little bit more carefully, but generally any family that qualifies through like SNAP benefits or those types of things automatically get identified as able to receive lunch for free through our lunch program.
Yeah, and there is a different income level for Medicaid than there is for SNAP benefits. So qualifying for Medicaid doesn't automatically mean that you'll qualify as economically disadvantaged. If you go to the Prospective Students page of our website, there's some guidelines for income. It has to do with your household size and gross monthly income. And those numbers are on that page of our website. And those are the same numbers that are used for free or reduced lunch. So Medicaid's a little bit different. Families that qualify as economically disadvantaged as far as the priority in our lottery, they will need to provide documentation if they're offered a spot. So they are given that 7-day, 5-day, 3-day to provide documentation that says that their income falls within those guidelines. Medicaid qualification is not one of the documents that we accept. So we accept a copy of your EBT card, taxes, and pay stubs, a notice from the housing authority that you are either receiving that or on the waiting list, or participation, verification that you participate in North Carolina's Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which is TANF. Does that answer your question?
So I see a question about how many openings for first grade. We always have at least 4 openings in first grade because we expand class size. And then it also depends on how many students return and also how many people are on the weighted, receive preference in the lottery because of enrolled siblings or staff, students or other preferences. So we don't have a set number yet. We will know more toward the, when we get closer to the lottery, but it's at least 4. And then the next question is asking if your child gets into the lottery and takes a spot in the classroom, do they have to do that every year? And the answer is no. Once you're enrolled in Evergreen, you're enrolled in Evergreen. So you don't have to go back through this process and take a chance at getting a spot again and again and again. So once you're here, you're here. And it's right about 6 o'clock, so I want to honor everyone's time. And if you have any last minute questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But otherwise, we are going to wrap up. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And I hope we've been able to answer some of your questions. And if you have ones that come up that you think of after we end the Zoom or next week or the week after, feel free to reach out to one of us. Kelly is your main point person for all things enrollment and lottery and information data related. So reach out to her or reach out to one of us and we can make sure we can connect you to the right person. And have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Thank you.